have you back, young man. Nice to see you. Ray is our personal butcher here at QVC. He's not just our butcher, he's a lot of folks' butcher. And he is a man who has been in this business for over 42 years. You have brought us your favorite steak. I always say when you run the donut shop, it takes an impressive donut to turn your head. If you've been a butcher for 42 years and you say this is your favorite steak, then that's saying something, right?
This is, and the reason it's my favorite steak, David, because the ribeye steak has the most marbling in it. So I'm going to take you right to the block so we can get it through. So take a look at these steaks. This is really what makes a steak great. So first of all, they're big steaks. They're 10 ounces. They're center cut. But what I want you to look at is the beautiful marbling that you see in each of these steaks. For me, that's what I call meat candy. That's what's going to give us that beautiful tenderness, the beautiful texture, but most important, the flavor. The flavor that comes out of a ribeye steak, or in some parts of the country, they call this a Delmonico steak. It is the very best. And when I go out to dinner, David, everyone asks, Ray, what steak should I order? It's always the ribeye steak for me.
And there's a little part on the top of the steak called the deckle.
There is.
And the deckle is the most tender, most fantastic part of this already very delicious steak.
Yes, and I'll show you that. If you actually, this is a great illustration of it. So you can see this entire steak, this top piece right here, this is called the deckle. So it actually is a separate piece all to itself, so you can see it. So when folks say, I don't want that piece on top, you always say, well, I'll take that piece on top.
Yeah, I'll totally take it.
It is that piece of steak that is by far the most tender on the entire steak. But David, not just Black Angus. These are Black Angus steaks that have been aged for 28 days. So
what does that do for us?
So aging is a natural process. So the reason you see that in great steakhouses, when they talk about Black Angus and they talk about it being aged, this is the reason. Look at that. That moisture that you see inside that steak is coming from that beautiful marbling. Yes. But for 28 days worth of aging gives us just a natural breakdown, and it gives you that beautiful, beautiful, deep flavor that you want out of beef. It's the way beef used to taste. And the reason I say that is because when you go to a supermarket, you're not getting a steak that's been aged. You're getting a steak that's been cut very, very quickly and put out in that case. That's not what we do here. We're going to make sure we age these for 28 days, just like we do for the steakhouses all over the country. That's what you deserve at home, the very best. And the ribeye, for me, is the very best.
Oh, boy, is that ever. Oh, Ray. Melt in your mouth, right?
It just does.
It so marbled, so it's super juicy and tender, full of great flavor. Remember, everywhere you see marbling, you see flavor.
That's it.
Because that flavor, that marbling is going to render down into the steak as it cooks, bathing it with all that flavor. And then you add a little bit of your seasoning here, sir?
Yes, and that seasoning packet comes right with it because we want you to be able to season that steak perfectly. And here's my little tip on seasoning.
Yes, please.
Right, pull that steak out of your freezer, put it in your refrigerator the day before. Let it really break down. But if you get in a pinch, just drop it under cold water. But get your steak to room temperature. Once it's to room temperature, that's when you begin to add your seasonings, right? Prior to cooking. That way it'll sit and it'll actually start to melt into that steak. So when you do grill it, you're going to get that flavor all the way through that steak.
Unbelievable. Don't miss out on this opportunity. We are very, very excited to have these ribeyes back on the air. Now, we're delivering these immediately. Your 6-pay will go away at the end of the day today. Now, I'm checking also to see, and yes, we have auto delivery. If you want to decide to lock this in, you're going to lock it in and get it delivered every 4 months for a year. So all that comes together for you really, really well. This is an extraordinary opportunity for you to pick these up and enjoy this gorgeous, heavily marbled, very tender, juicy steak that is just incredible. And remember, these are 10-ouncers.
Yes.
So if you decide you want to take one steak and cut it in half, you've got a meal for 2 people.
You do. Look at the size of these steaks.
I mean, come on. Think about that.
That's one steak that we've made 2 meals out of because they're center cut, David, and they're trimmed all the way around. And that's so important to have that steak trimmed that way.
Yes, indeed. I'm just going to thank you for that. Get this with a little more seasoning. Wow. So good.
Isn't it? It's just velvety in your mouth. And as you mentioned, because of the marbling, when you cook this on the grill, or if you're in the wintertime, you're going to cook it in the broiler, because I do that all winter long, it just bathes in it. But when I can take a steak and cut through it with a fork this, that's a tender steak.
Come on.
And when you get the texture and you get the flavor from all that marbling, look at this. Every single steak is exactly perfect.
What's in front of me is what you're getting. 10-ounce Black Angus 28-day aged ribeye steaks. Mr. Rastelli, it is always a great pleasure, sir, to have you back with us.
Thank you so much.
Nice to see you so much. All right, we're going to head over here with Stacey Lou.